the Royal Caribbean's vision of the seas. Bottom line up front, the Royal Caribbean crew is incredible. But how much lipstick can you put on this pig?
I know. Comparing this lovely ship to putting lipstick on a pig might be a little mean to the pig. But I just got off one of Royal Caribbean's older ships, and it was an entirely different experience than what I get on their bigger, newer ships. Some things were good, some were bad, and some were absolutely disgusting. I was on the Royal Caribbean Vision of the Seas. It was built in 1997, and even though it was refurbished in 2013, there are still some parts of the ship where my mom was saying she felt the need to flat iron her hair and turn on an episode of Friends. If you know, you know. So let me start off with the good things about this ship, which were numerous. First, and most importantly, the crew. They were exceptional. Honestly, I've been on a lot of cruises, and I've never seen a crew work as hard as this one. It's like they knew that their ship doesn't offer what the other Royal Caribbean ships do, so they were determined to make up for it with their energy and passion for service. They filled our itinerary with so many events. I'm actually posting a separate video that will list all of them for those of you who wonder how you will fill your time on a long cruise. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss that. Anyway, I was so impressed by how seriously the crew took their jobs and just how much fun they wanted us to have. This truly was one of those cruises where it's only as fun as you make it fun. And the crew were at the heart of that. So 5 stars to them. The size of the ship is a real plus, especially if you have a hard time getting around. This ship only holds 2,043 guests and is 915 feet long and 106 feet wide. Compare that to the Oasis of the Seas. That holds 5,602 guests, and it's 1,187 feet long and 215 feet wide. So it's so much easier to get around. Size-wise, an Oasis-class ship could eat this ship as an appetizer, and I'm not even talking about that new icon of the seas. That's a topic for an entirely separate video, and I can't wait to see what all the fuss is about. There's also a kind of feel to a cruise like this that is different from when you're on the bigger ships. It feels a lot more like that classic style of cruising that I hear people talking about sometimes. Because it's smaller, you get to know the crew members better. You even start recognizing fellow cruisers more, which can be good and bad. Some people like the anonymity of being in the crowd, but for those of you who are looking to really make lasting friendships on a cruise, a smaller ship like this one really might be perfect for you. Of course, since we're still on the good stuff, I'm going to also point out that there is a full-service Starbucks on the ship, even though we were told that there wasn't when we booked. So how exactly do I define full service? Well, any place that can make me a Frappuccino I think is full service. I think this might be a new capability on this ship because when we booked, the person at Royal Caribbean's 800 number was very specific that they can only do iced coffee. So sometime in between the time we booked and the time we sailed, that seems to have changed. And with the amazing staff, they made me some of the best Frappuccinos I've had in my life. But if you're looking for a full Starbucks menu, you won't get that yet. But the fraps are divine and the service is outstanding. So we've talked about the good, now let's talk about the bad things about smaller, older ships like this. And after that, I'll get into the ugly. And by ugly, I mean the kinds of things that make you throw up a little in your mouth. So the most common bad thing with these smaller ships that you'll hear people complain about is that there's nothing to do. I spent some time in the teen room and definitely heard this from a lot of the kids there. It's not entirely true, people. There's usually some form of entertainment going on, but you'll find yourself doing things like waiting in line for an origami class where you can make things like this amazing ladybug. And yes, I'm using the word amazing with sarcasm. There's usually trivia going on somewhere, and it's usually themed, which is unfortunate for me because I don't know much about Madonna or the Beatles or 1970s sitcoms or things like that. There's frequently bingo. In fact, my parents and I actually did bingo for the first time ever, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. The crew even put on a kind of carnival-like thing that was great for families with little kids. They set up games like beanbag toss and ring toss. So in reality, there really is plenty to do on a ship like this, but it won't be quite what you are expecting if you are used to the newer ships. There was a rock climbing wall, a lot smaller than the ones on their bigger ships, but still fun, and there were pools and hot tubs. You can see my full ship tour to see exactly what's on board, so if you're new to cruising or maybe just looking for a different experience, then you'll hopefully love a ship like this. But if you are a big ship diehard who demands things like water slides and flow rider on your ships, then run, don't walk. Run from a ship this size, because you won't be getting what you want. Another negative is some of the entertainment. I hesitate to list this as a negative because I want to say up front that the talent on board this ship is phenomenal. And please note that I'm only talking about some of the entertainment. The musical style shows really had us scratching our heads, because we could see just how talented these performers are, but with the scripts and the sort of randomness of the songs that they try to turn into a cohesive show, it just wasn't as good as the performers really deserve. There was a lot of focus on 1950s and 60s songs, so I think they were trying to cater to an older audience, which was fine with me because I like any kind of music, but the scripts that kind of held the shows together were really makeshift. And with the amount of talent that they have on board, I kind of wish Royal Caribbean would spring for better scripts and musical scores for them, because the performers deserve it. It felt like the shows were put together on a really tight budget, which I'm sure they were since it's a smaller ship. And maybe they didn't want to pay all the fees associated with putting on something like Jersey Boys, which I actually saw on the NCL Bliss 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm still talking about it. That's a stark contrast to the shows on this ship, because it's just days after I got off, and I already can't remember what the heck they were about. Aside from those musical style shows, they had some other performers in their main theater. One of them was a comic/juggler, and I thought it was going to be epically bad, but it turns out that he was incredible. Hands down, our favorite show on the ship. Then there was another one who I don't want to name because he was so painfully bad, and I don't want to shame anyone. He was so bad that in fact, a couple days later, we saw a comedian on the ship, and even he was making jokes about just how bad that guy was. So that kind of says it all. I think the point I want to make is that when you're on a ship like this, don't get turned off to the entertainment if you see something that isn't what you would expect on a Royal Caribbean cruise. Because while some of it might not be great, other shows are really outstanding, and you don't want to miss them. I mean, I nearly skipped that comic juggler guy entirely, and I really would have missed out if I did. As for the decor, honestly, I've seen worse for such an old ship, so I can't really complain at all about this one. And you'll see in my full ship tour of it, it's really quite a lovely ship. But if you look closely, you'll see lots of rust everywhere, stains, worn down furniture, that sort of thing. It wasn't horrible, but if you're used to newer ships, it will definitely stand out. So keep your standards at a more reasonable level if you're on an older ship. Another negative thing that struck me is that the ship smelled like cigarettes in a lot of the areas that weren't even smoking. This is because the casino, of course, allowed smoking, but it just poured out of there and into the main area they call the Centrum. And from there, it simply traveled upward to everywhere, because you could look all the way up to all the other decks from the Centrum. There also seemed to be a lot more smoking areas on this ship than I normally see. It might be because it's a smaller ship, so it's all more concentrated. So if you're a smoker, you'll probably love it. But if you are sensitive to smoke, definitely go for one of the newer ships that have designs that keep smoke a lot more contained. Also, here's a very unexpected negative. If you're a fan of buying a soda package for your Royal Caribbean cruises and you've only been on the bigger ships, you are going to absolutely hate the soda package on board the smaller, older ships, because they don't have those great self-serve vending machines that you're used to. If you want a soda, you're gonna have to go to the bar to get it, and you will be waiting in a long line because at the bar, most people are ordering drinks that take a lot more prep than soda. It's not a deal breaker, but it really does make you appreciate those vending machines they have on the big ships that lets you get your own soda quickly. I really hope they put those on the smaller ships too. It seems like a small investment and would make the lives of their very hard-working bartenders a lot easier. But hey, I'm a kid, what do I know? If you're an arcade addict like my dad is, then you also might be disappointed. I'll be posting a full tour of the arcade on the Vision of the Seas, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. And it was okay. There were a few games and one air hockey table, but not nearly the type of arcade that you might be used to from the other ships. In fact, here's another pro tip that will save you money. When you book a cruise, Royal Caribbean will try to get you to buy things before your actual sail date. They offer you really good savings for doing this. Sometimes this can be very smart, and I'll be doing a video on one in particular that saved us $1,500. But if you're on a smaller ship, I probably wouldn't buy a fully loaded arcade card until you see what games they're offering you. Because no one wants to end up playing $100 worth of those claw games, right? Also, in the bad category, though this might actually be considered outright disgusting, is that on a smaller ship, you're going to feel the waves a lot more. Now for my mom, who's a die-hard legit sailor, she loves that. But for me, well, let's just say I got violently seasick for my first time ever, and I've been on a lot of ships. The waves were pretty bad, but to be honest, they could have been a lot worse. So I'm just grateful I learned my lesson and didn't do this in the middle of a real storm. I think in my case, it was a lot harder because on a small ship, you can really feel that ship's engine vibrating, and when you're already seasick, it feels like you're sitting in a Vitamix. In fact, I don't remember much about that night, but I do vaguely remember begging my parents to ask the captain to turn off the engine, which I do realize makes no sense. But nothing made sense to me at that point. I was just about at the point where my mom was going to ask them to give me an IV saline drip. It was that bad. One little pro tip I thought I'd share with you. When it's rough seas and you have someone puking up a storm in your cabin, you are probably not alone. In fact, if you go to the ship's staircase, they may even hang a barf bag dispenser on it like they did for our ship. If they don't, call your steward, they will bring you some. Lastly, for the bad stuff, before I move on to the horrifying, you might spend a lot more on a smaller ship than you probably would on a bigger ship, just because there isn't as much to do that's free. So yeah, that's why we even tried our hand at bingo for $40 on this ship, whereas on other ships we've never wanted to. We even took the time out of our day to participate in all those raffles they do in the stores, because hey, we didn't have anything else to do, so why not? And yes, if you are legal, you're going to be drinking a lot more. Because you don't have to worry about staying sober to do the flow rider after too many beers, so why not? I'm just a kid, so this doesn't pertain to me. But I did hear my dad saying things like, well, I guess I may as well have another beer. Which usually isn't like him because he'd rather be doing the active stuff rather than just sitting with a beer and a bingo card. You'll also spend more money in their specialty restaurants for the same reason. There just aren't many choices that are free, and the buffet is a lot smaller than you get on a big ship. For that matter, there were only 3 specialty restaurants on this ship, which was fine for us actually, and we really enjoyed them. But if you want to eat in a different specialty restaurant every night, then you're going to run out pretty quickly if it's a longer cruise. So we did the good, we did the bad. Now let's move on to the outright ugly. And I know you're thinking, but you just talked about seasickness. Can it really get worse? Well, in my book, yeah, it can. In my video tour of our mini suite, I mentioned that we had some issues with the shower that took a while to resolve. Let's start with the simply annoying, then move on to the gross. and then we'll eventually end up with the thing that had my mom wishing she had packed us all some hazmat suits. The first one was that our shower curtain had a giant smear of something blue and sticky on the inside of it. This wasn't so bad. Mom figured it's probably shampoo or toothpaste. But since we hadn't used the shower yet, she simply took down the shower curtain and asked for a new one. They brought it, but they brought the wrong kind. It was about 7 inches too long and 3 feet too short. I have no idea what they used this thing for, but somewhere on the ship there must be really tall, narrow shower stalls, and we ended up with their curtain. So it dragged down into the tub so badly that my mom had to use binder clips to hoist it up when we showered. And since it was too narrow, it only covered about half of the tub, and water got everywhere. We did ask for a new curtain, but it took a while to get it. And again, the crew were awesome and so apologetic. But wait, that's not that bad. So then the other gross thing, and believe me, I'm saving the best for last, and this is not it, is that the tub was completely clogged. We knew it wasn't our hair because it started filling up on my mom's very first shower. So we called maintenance, and eventually they did send someone with a plunger. Funny story there too, because according to my dad, who was in the cabin at the time, the man who arrived didn't know how to use a plunger in a bathtub, only in a toilet, so my dad had to teach him. The man was super nice though, and really appreciative, and gave my dad the impression that he was new. This is actually something we'd hear a lot from the crew, but they're just so nice that you don't mind at all. We honestly can't say enough good things about this crew. But that's not the really gross thing, and I did promise you the best for the last. Something caught my mom's eye about an hour after we arrived on one of those bottles of shampoos that they have in the shower for you. This particular one was turned inward a bit, so she didn't see it at first until she was at a different angle. But when she did, well, she really wanted to unsee it. It was a brown smear of not quite sure. Yeah, yuck. Not certain if it's poop or dried blood, because blood can look kind of brown after it's dry. I don't know what it is. If you have a guess, post it in the comments below. I'd personally like to think it's just something like, well, maybe chocolate sauce, because that lets me sleep better at night. But anyway, Mom always brings a giant pack of Lysol wipes and a few pairs of latex gloves for these situations, so we were able to take care of it ourselves. But it just kind of put us in the wrong frame of mind. And hey, we've all seen gross things on a cruise ship before, right? So post your most disgusting cruise or travel experience in the comments below. All in all, I actually look back on this as a really good cruise. The crew were so nice and fun, and it's one of those experiences that you just have to go in with an open mind and try new things. My family made some great memories. I even did the silent disco, which is a ton of fun, and I highly recommend it. And a lot of the reason I loved this particular cruise is because we sprang for the overwater cabana at Cocoa Beach Club on Cocoa Key, which was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that I'll be posting about next. You really don't want to miss that one, so please subscribe. But all that said, it will probably be my last small ship cruise for at least a while. I really do like all the activities and restaurants on the bigger ships, and after that seasickness experience, holy mother of God, give me one of those behemoth ships where I don't even feel like it's moving, you know?
Thanks for watching. Again, be sure to subscribe because I'm going to be posting some things that you need to know about this class of ships before you book. Don't make the same mistakes we did.